Breathing is a mechanical process that involves taking air into and out of the lungs. In this video, we're going to look at the three things that help us during breathing. We'll both look at the breathing in stage or inhalation and when breathing out or exhalation. We're going to look at the intercostal muscles, rib cage, and the diaphragm. During breathing out, the diaphragm muscles relax, which returns a dome shape. The external intercostal muscles relax, and this forces the rib cage to fall downwards and inwards. As a result, the lung volume decreases and pressure inside increases. This will force air out. And the movement during the breathing in stage or inhalation, the diaphragm muscles contract and the diaphragm moves downwards. The external intercostal muscles contract, which pulls rib cage upwards and outwards. This in turn increases the lung volume and the pressure falls, which pushes air into the lungs to equalize the pressure as air rushes in. This creates a rhythmic movement of the rib cage moving upwards and outwards during breathing in, inwards and downwards during breathing out.
Let's look at a process of breathing step by step, and we're going to begin with the taking of air into the lungs, which we call breathing in or inhalation, and what properties or what the organs or parts, what happens to them when we breathe in or when inhale. So we've got what we call the diaphragm. So the diaphragm is located just below the rib cage. So the diaphragm muscles contract and the diaphragm moves downwards when we breathe in. So you can touch but just below your rib cage. When you're breathing in and out, you can feel some movements just on your upper belly. You'll be able to feel the movements as you breathe in. So the diaphragm moves downwards. So as you breathe in, the diaphragm moves downwards, and then the external intercostal muscles, they contract and they pull the rib cage upwards and outwards. So as you can carry out this simple experiment, just try to breathe in, and then you see your rib cage moving, or the ribs moving upwards and outwards. So we're going to look at an illustration of what this rib cage is, and just a picture to show us. Your rib cage will move upwards and outwards, so it's like your chest will expand. So we've got the external intercostal muscles contracting, and then the lung volume, the volume of your lungs increases and the pressure falls, because now it's like you're filling your lungs with air. So air rushes in to equalize the pressure. Now we've got low pressure now inside because the volume has increased, and then air from outside gets in. So that the mechanism of breathing in, that is what happens when we breathe in. So before we look at the picture, let's look at the mechanism of breathing out. So now let us talk about the mechanism of breathing out, that is exhalation. So we talked about the diaphragm moving downwards when we are breathing in. Now let's talk about moving the breathing out. So the diaphragm muscles are going to relax. Remember, in the previous lesson, in the previous part, the diaphragm was muscles were contracting. So now the opposite is going to happen. The muscles are going to relax, and they're going to return to a dome shape, and the external intercostal muscles are going to relax. The rib cage is going to fall downwards and inwards, decreasing the volume, and pressure increases, which forces the air out. So that what happens when we are breathing out, and that is the mechanism. So what you can note here is the movement of the intercostal, external intercostal muscles. What happens when we're breathing out is that they relax, and when we're breathing in, the external intercostal muscles, they contract. So this is a diagram on which shows us what happens, and we say there is a dome shaped on the diaphragm. So we can focus on the one to the left, and we can see that we've got the lungs actually expanding, and this is the diaphragm actually moving downwards. That is when we are inhaling, therefore increasing the volume of our lungs. The rib cage expands as rib muscles contract, or the external intercostal muscles, also just known as the rib muscles, they contract. So as they contract, the volume gets increased, and then decreasing the pressure, then air runs in. This is on exhalation, where the diaphragm relaxes or moves up and forms a dome shape. You can see the volume decreases, and the rib cage gets smaller as the rib muscles, or the also known as the external intercostal muscles, these are the rib muscles, they relax, forcing the volume, the pressure increases, forcing the air out of the lungs. So this is when we are exhaling or taking air out of the lungs. So basically this is what happens. So now let us compare the features of inspiration and expiration, or also known as inhalation and exhalation. What are the features? So we've talked about the intercostal muscles, also known as the rib muscles. What happens when we are breathing in? If you remember, we said they contract, and when you're breathing out, the rib muscles or the intercostal muscles, the internal muscles contract, whereas the external intercostal muscles, they relax. So we can do well to remember this. So the external muscles contract, and the external muscles on expiration, they relax, whilst the internal, they contract. So just like this, the opposite of the other. So when the external muscles contract, the internal muscles relax. When the internal muscles, the external muscles relax, the internal muscles contract. So you can pick on any of those. So for inspiration, so what I can help talk about for you is remember what happens. For inspiration, it has got an E. So when you talk about the external muscles, which have got an E, we can say that these muscles actually contract. And for expiration, we have got an E, an I, and an E. We can say the external muscles contract. So for expiration, which has got an E, just got an E, and we can say the external muscles. If we were to use external muscles here instead of internal muscles, we are going to say they relax. So EE, they relax, and IE, the muscles contract. So that will just depend on you on how you can use that. That will be helpful. So the rib cage movement, we see it moves upwards and outward for inspiration, and then for expiration it moves downwards, and the diaphragm moves downwards for inspiration. For expiration it moves upwards. The thorax, also known as the chest volume, increases for inspiration and decreases for expiration. Air pressure in the thorax cavity is lower than air pressure outside when we are breathing in, because when the air runs in, and then air pressure is higher in the cavity than the air pressure outside for expiration. So no wonder air runs out, and air rushes into the lungs, air rushes out of the lungs. And now let us talk about the composition of the very air that we are breathing in and the air that we are breathing out. So let us start with the air that we are breathing in, also known as inspired air, or air which is being taken into the lungs. What are the composition? So air into the lungs has got 21% oxygen and 0.04% carbon dioxide, and then nitrogen is 78%. Water vapor varies according with the climate or the conditions of our surrounding. Probably it could be someone is sleeping in a room where there's hot air or dry air, so that will vary with the environment of the person when it comes to water vapor. So these are the composition of air which is being taken in: 1% oxygen, 0.04% carbon dioxide, and 78% nitrogen. So when we breathe in, this is what we breathe in. Now let us compare with what we breathe out, the composition of the air that we breathe out. So when we breathe out, we see the numbers are changing. We have about 18% oxygen from 21% and 3% carbon dioxide from 0.04%, and the composition of nitrogen remains the same, and we have got saturated water vapor. So what happened? So for oxygen, we know we used some of the oxygen, so hence we've got a lesser amount out. And for carbon dioxide, we know that we've produced carbon dioxide from respiration because we were burning food in the body, hence the byproduct which was being produced was carbon dioxide. So we produce carbon dioxide inside our body, and this has to be taken out. So we therefore see an increment of carbon dioxide from 0.04% to 3%. And nitrogen typically remains the same, doesn't change. And then we've got some water vapor being taken out of the body, because our body, basically we've got more water in our body tissues, and therefore it's expected that we have saturated water vapor. So this is the mechanism of gaseous exchange, and when it comes to respiration, what we can talk about. So in the next lesson, we're gonna still talk more about the exchange of gases, and we'll discuss more on this lesson. We're still going on this lesson, so see you in the next lesson.